Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Hello Me. It's me, vulnerable as F. I am hope that you can hear me. I'm being vulnerable right now because you are in my room. Usually I try to do this outside. I hope I don't have any like toys out or anything. I'm looking skin in the room. There's nothing I can see. So great. We're doing good. We're doing good. First off, I want to apologize because I haven't seen you and it's been 6 going on 7 months now. And one reason for that was I was doing a TV show. I'm not even going to say the name of the show because, to be honest, I'm not really impressed with what they did with that show, given that they had so much footage and so many ways they could have done personal interactions with that, and they just chose not to do it. I'm not even putting it out there, but I will say this. The name of this podcast is entitled Ghosted Again and Avoidance Lessons in Love. Sounds perfect. So it's probably exactly what we're going to utilize. So I will say this. In the summer, we shot a show. And then there was a 3-month stretch and we shot a show again in August. And then we went to Canada to shoot the show and we got back. So it made it kind of difficult for me to date at the time. And since I've been here, I've just been trying to transition. I've gotten a job where I'm working now. So that was like the big transition of trying to figure out what I was doing while I was down here in California. And also, your girl decided she wanted love the last time we talked. I hadn't dated since the last ghoster. And if you go back to some of my old ones where it says ghosted, you realize that I wound up getting into a relationship with someone who was emotionally unavailable. And I did not realize that they were emotionally unavailable until getting into that relationship with them. Right? I was determined to find my husband last year. Let me just say this. I thought my husband had found me because, and I do need to tell this story. Because this is a warning story to all women. This is a red alert warning story to all women who have ever been love bombed before. Because in this situation, I was completely love bombed. And I have been love bombed before, believe it or not. And I have broken free from the chains. I have said, nope, I'm not going to do that. I know something's wrong here. You're coming on too strong, too fast. But, and there's a but here, but I was love bombed because I did not catch the signs early on because he was quite good the way he did things. But we're going to go over what I learned from this experience, and I'm going to actually tell you the experience. And we'll start off with the fact that I met somebody in September, and things really seemed promising. We met on a dating app, and he said he was looking for long-term in his profile, and I said I was looking for long-term in my profile. That's all I had, and that's all he had. So I thought that was a good sign, number one. Number two, we immediately went into the things that we were both looking for, which I thought was a good sign. He was ready to get married. He actually had never had children before. He's basically 40, never had kids, never been married. And so for 2 weeks, we texted over the phone. We never had a phone conversation. And I actually thought he was a catfish. We were supposed to meet up that week. I got into a car accident. And then he was like, I know you probably have a lot going on. Let's go ahead and meet up next week. So 3 weeks had gone by where we're just texting on the phone. And I basically had just called him my pen pal. I was like, this is never going to come into fruition. I'm never going to see this guy. This guy is basically like some dude in Africa who's texting me. And because I hadn't been dating for a while, I didn't care. Not that I was like falling into some fantasy land. Like if he had asked me for money, I would have given it to him. But I didn't really care that I just had a pen pal for a moment, but I was like, this dude's going to be a catfish. So we were supposed to meet up at this place, just 20 minutes from my house. He said he wanted to come to me. He got off of work early and said he was on his way, and we wound up meeting. And I promise you, when I got there, I swore, I was like, when I get here, this guy is going to be, if he shows up, which I figured he was going to come up with an excuse for not showing up. I figured, you know what, this guy's going to look nothing like his picture. I'm going to be like, who the hell is this? But when I got there, I was pleasantly surprised. He didn't look exactly like his photos, but he was very similar to his photos. And he was very warm and open. So we started talking immediately. When we got there, I made a joke about him dating other people and what his dating experiences were like. And he said that he had already decided that he wasn't dating anyone else. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, no pressure to you, but I kind of already decided that I want to, pursue this. And so I'm putting all my attention into this, but no pressure for you. I'm just telling you how I'm feeling. And I'm not going to lie. I kind of thought it was too soon, but I still admired the fact that he knew what he wanted. And I was just kind of like, he can do what he wants to do. That's not going to stop me from still doing what I want to do. He said there was no pressure. So if that's what he wants to do, that's on him, right? We met for drinks. And then he was like, do you want to go get something to eat? Well, this was a Tuesday night. And so there wasn't that much available, but we did stumble upon a restaurant that was still open. So we go there and we're eating. And right before the food comes, he opens the napkin for me and he puts it on my lap. And I'm like thinking, oh, okay, wow. And then the other thing is, while I'm eating, he'll go like this. Like, he'll put his hand out, like, so that the food doesn't drop while I'm eating. And I'm like, oh, wow, like, how sweet. He's being so attentive. He's being so considerate and kind. And during that conversation, he's like, you know what? I know how this is a good date because there's no awkward silences. We're still talking. And, like, I'm really enjoying my time with you. And I was like, thank you. I'm thinking, do you normally have like awkward dates? And a moment, I should be very clear with myself. I didn't think it was like an extraordinary date at that moment. But the fact that he said he thought it was extraordinary made me kind of think in my mind, okay, well, maybe this is kind of like a good thing that we are still talking, right? Because I think he got there at 6 and by this time it was 11. And he kept saying, I really don't want to leave you. I'm just having too much fun. Like, I'm really enjoying my time tonight. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I know I am a great time, but the fact that he said it even meant that much more. And he also was like showering me with compliments, not like too much, just enough. Like, he was like, I don't know if you noticed, but people are looking at you when we walk by. And I was looking like, oh, no, I didn't notice that. But thank you for pointing it out. Because I really don't. I'm not looking at things like that. So what if they were, if they weren't, I don't know. But he was like, yeah, people are looking at you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I hope it's in a good way. He said, oh no, I think it's really good. And while we were walking and we left, I think it was around 12 o'clock because the place had closed. We walked out and he's like, I really don't want this night to end. And he held my hand. And it didn't feel unnatural. Like, we walked past the jewelry store and he was like, what kind of jewelry do you like? And I was like, oh, I like, small dainty pieces of jewelry because I didn't have any on at the time. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. I was like, oh, he's being very mindful. And then one other story is future faking. And I think this is important. And this is why I'm telling the story as vividly as I can. In case someone else comes across the same thing. But as we were walking, the water hose was going off and like water was coming out that shouldn't have been. And I said something along the lines of, if I was at my house, I would call the fire department or something. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I was like, yeah. And I'll be there with you. Like 60 years from now, I'll be there. If this ever happens, I'll be there to be able to hear you call the fire department or something. Something like that, where he put himself in the mix in the future. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. He's already like seeing a future with me. Like, very nice. Like, he was dropping these little things where even when we were walking, he kept me on the inside. He was very chivalrous, very kind. When we got to the car, he didn't try to kiss me. He just closed the door, saw me off, and told me to tell him when I got home and to have a good night. And I must say, that was probably one of the most impressive first dates that I've ever been on, if I must say so myself. And We'll get to the lessons I learned at the end of this, but it was definitely for a reason. After that first date, he was very consistent, very. And I make a point of saying this because men can act consistent. So do not be fooled just because a man is consistent. Also, do not be fooled because a man is consistent. You do not know whether or not you want to know if he's going to be consistent consistently. All right, I'll put that out there. Anyway, every day he would text. I found it odd that we were just doing a lot of texting. However, let me point out something that I did not point out that's very important that I should have put out in the beginning. This man that I was dating is Korean. And he stated that he's Korean American. I'm not sure if I believe it now looking back. I think that maybe he was actually more Korean moving to America. He said that he was born and raised here in America, but his English was a little broken, which makes me start to disbelieve a lot of the story that he told me. Could be he's Korean American and just, has broken English and just spoken a lot of Korean, mostly given that he lived near Koreatown. I don't know. But I put that out there to say that there was a cultural difference. And he is the first Korean American man that I have ever dated before. And so even though things are kind of coming on kind of strong, I did not question it too much. I did research it and I saw that it was a thing. So I was like, okay, well then maybe this is a cultural thing that I just don't know. They just come on really strong, really fast. Because our second date, we did like a little pool. We went out to dinner. And then afterwards, we did like a little pool date. And we played this game where whoever won, of course, got a kiss. This is a thing with guys, They have to make it competitive and someone has to get a kiss at the end, of course, right? And I didn't mind. Because I really liked him. And so we stayed out that day. It was probably a 6 or 7 hour date. He got off work early, came, and then we were out till 1 o'clock in the morning, I think. Third date is when he started talking about marriage. And he started calling me his lady. And that's when I officially took myself off the market. I shut down all the dating apps. I was like, okay, he's committed. He's really into this. He's talking about marriage and a wedding. And yeah, sure, that's what I'm looking for. That's what he's looking for. And he started talking about meeting his mom and how he had told his mom about me and how he was afraid at first to tell her because he didn't think he was going to find anybody because he'd been single for so long. And also to point out another thing is I asked him why he'd been single for so long. And he said it was because he was too busy. He owns his own business and apparently business took a lot of time. And the last relationship that he was in, the woman was like, you're just spending way too much time on this business. I need some personal one-on-one time. You're not giving it to me. Either you're going to stop this business or we're going to quit. And he was like, there's no way I'll set up in my business, so I guess we're going to quit this. That was 3 years ago. So his last relationship had been 3 years ago. And supposedly I was the only person he had talked to since then. I really don't believe that now. I think that he was I'm sure he's been dating this entire 3 years. Do I think he's had an actual relationship since then? I don't know. The dude could be married for all I know. Anyway, hate to break any bubbles. I don't even know. I have no clue. All I know is by the third date, he asked me basically to be his girl. And we started talking about weddings. Now, one of the main things I could point out is I started talking about my first wedding because he asked me. He said, so did you get everything that you wanted in your first wedding? And I said, no. My first wedding was crappy. That relationship was horrible. And before I could get into it, he goes, we don't have to talk about that. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the wedding. Like, well, hold on. Then I was like, oh, maybe it's just not a good time to talk about this. That was my first clue. He doesn't like to get too deep. He didn't want to talk about anything too deep, anything that was too emotional. It was just like, let's just talk about the lovey-dovey stuff and let's forget about everything else. So it was a really beautiful place he took me to on our third date. I enjoyed my time with him. I got in the car. I drove back home, and that was it. Fourth date. He gets a hotel near me. He never invites me to a hotel. Let me not say that. I invited myself, actually. He has a job that's close by my house. Mind you, he lives an hour away in LA. I am an hour outside of LA. And we go out to eat. We get something to drink later. And then afterwards, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and he has to be at work at 5. And so I say, well, why don't we just go to your hotel room? Because he had gotten a hotel. But it was really more of a motel. Because it was kind of like in this like crappy little area. And he's like, oh, I just need like a place to lay my head. So I'm like, well, I'll go there with you. So we go there. Nothing happens. I'm sure he may have wanted something to happen. But in my mind, I'm thinking, this is a crappy ass hotel. First off, I don't want our first time to be in this crappy ass hotel. Secondly, I'm thinking, I still don't know enough about him yet. I still feel like I'm being love bombed, especially when we get into the hotel room. I decide I want to ask more questions. You know how they have like those 30 questions to get to know your partner, like in 5 minutes? Like those deep questions where you look in each other's eyes and ask the questions? I was asking the questions, and one of the questions is, have you ever cheated? And he said, yes, I have. And I was like, you have? Do tell the story. And he goes, oh, we don't have to talk about that. That's in the past. I don't, what did he say? He goes, I don't judge you on your past. You don't judge me on mine. Okay. So basically, we just don't want to talk about the past. That's what it is at this point. So I feel myself kind of retreat because I'm like, he's not really going to be very open and honest and vulnerable with me. And I didn't notice that that's when I was shutting down, and I probably should have shut down completely. But that's probably the night. There ain't no problem. That was the night that everything just kind of like went to shit. Oh, I forgot. This was our 6th date. Before that, we had actually gone out to a comedy show. But anyway, our 6th date, this is within 2 months. We're seeing each other. And at this point, I'm like, he's going to run because this is our 6th date. We haven't had sex. You know how men are. My thing is, I need 3 months. After my last ghosting situation, do you know what I realized about that? You have to give this man 3 months in order to see who they really are. They can fake it for 2 months. That's not a problem. 3 months? They can't do it. So I was like, this has only been 2 months. I'm not budging off of this. Like, I need to see what you look like at 3 months. So after that situation, a day later, he lets me know that he's going to have to go to Chicago and that there's this major problem on this project that they're building in Chicago. And he don't know how long it's going to take. I'm trying to be supportive girlfriend at this point. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever you need to do. Now, mind you, we're still just texting at this point. We're not calling. I don't remember why. I thought he told me he didn't like to talk over the phone. I don't know what it was, but I was fine with it. I was like, you know what? Texting is easier for me. I'll just text him. So we're texting the whole time. One time I say to him, I say, you know, I miss you, because he'd been there for 3 weeks. And I was like, I miss you. Maybe we should FaceTime or something. And he's like, why do we need to FaceTime? I'm going to be there tomorrow. Because he'd been there for 3 weeks. And at this point, he said he was coming home. Well, he didn't come home the next day. Something happened with the city and he still had to stay there. And I was like, okay, this is getting dragged out a long time. And he's like, I know, but I promise when I get home, like, I'm going to see you. Like, that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm like, okay, cool. It was a week before Thanksgiving. He comes home. And when he gets there, he's like, oh, I'm going to see you on Wednesday. And I was like, great, fine. I'll see you on Wednesday. I blocked my calendar off. I'm going to see my man on Wednesday, right? Wednesday comes. He hits me up and he's like, you know what? I'm really sick. I can't. I don't want to get you sick. I have to stay home. I was like, well, you know, I'm really sad that I'm not going to get to see you. But of course, I don't want to get sick and I want him to get better. So I'm like, okay, great. Go to sleep. Have a good time. I didn't mean to say it like that. I'm like, get some rest. I want you to get better. And he's like, thank you. So come to find out, he goes to the doctor. Apparently he doesn't have the flu. He's not like sick. Apparently he's just depressed or stressed out from all the things that he had to do in Chicago. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if you're so, depressed or whatever, you just stay home. And he's like, you know what? Hopefully I'll see you for your birthday. So birthday was a week after Thanksgiving. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll see him for my birthday. Birthday comes around and he hits me up and he's like, somebody stole my car. And I had to deal with this car situation. I had to go to the police station. He lives in LA. So I'm thinking, it's unfortunate, but these things happen. He went from being sick to his car being stolen. So now, whatever. I'm not going to see him for my birthday. Woo-hoo me. And of course I was sad. But one thing I did notice is he did wish me happy birthday, but he didn't send anything to the house, which I thought was kind of weird. So I was like, okay, well, that's not very chivalrous. But I let it slide. But at this point, he's on thin ice. I'm like, I'm getting kind of done with the situation. Mind you, this is also the 3-month mark. So I'm getting kind of done with the situation. He misses my birthday, doesn't send anything, just sends me happy birthday. But again, I understand someone stole his car. So, maybe you're not thinking correctly. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to do? I'm going to plan myself a birthday trip and I'm going to invite him to come along with. So that's what I do. He's like, yeah, I'm so excited. I'll even start looking at the hotels. I'll let you know. 4 days go by. I don't hear anything about the hotels, where we're staying, like anything. So at this point, and I'm also a former avoidant, which means I'm used to running when I'm afraid someone's about to leave me. But I'm like, no, I'm about to stick this out. We better see this through. Because when I say former, I mean former. Now I'm like, I will confront conflict when I need to. So I reach out and I say, is everything okay? Are you still able to make this? Is it because you're stressed out? Are you sure you're going to be able to do this trip? Trying to be considerate. Like, I don't want to come across like upset, but considerate. And then he goes, you know what? Maybe I will let you know. So now I'm semi-pissed because I had to confront you to tell me that there's a possibility you can't make it, which means you also are giving me people-pleasing vibes where you put others before yourself, supposedly, in trying to help them. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, guys. And by that, you can be the nicest person in the world, but if at the end of the day you can't follow through with something, you're going to be the bad guy in the end, which is exactly what he was in this case. So, at this point, I tell him, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Because I know at this point it's all on me, right? I'm pissed. I stopped talking to him. He comes back and he's like, is everything okay? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's just hard for me to get away from work right now. And I tell him I'm upset. I'll get back to him when I have a moment and I'll talk to him, which is really big of me because normally I'll just ghost. Normally, my old self would just ghost and leave. Like, dude, like, you're playing with my emotions. Stop it. I'm done. I have nothing else to say to you. You should know what you did, okay? But I'm trying to be a bigger person now. Trying to be a bigger person, that means that I have to put on my big girl panties and I have to express my feelings and I have to express my emotions. I know. Even as hard as it may be. I know. That's what I have to do. So that's what I do. I express to him, I'm upset. I'm upset. I wanted to see you on this trip. I really did. I'm disappointed again. We went from my birthday to the birthday trip, Thanksgiving. It seems like this is starting to be a pattern. And he goes, I'm sorry. I know I keep messing this up for us, but, one of my main engineers quit on me today and I didn't know how to say that. Okay. This is when I'm starting to learn that this man is emotionally unavailable, okay? Because now, only with me, and then of course, me opening up a space for him, he's allowing me in a little bit, but not enough. Not enough, okay? Not enough to sustain a healthy relationship. And it's at this time where I'm starting to do this anxious attachment style where I think I'm pulling for more from him. Not too much, though, because being a former avoidant, I know you can't put too much on an avoidant. You can't push too hard on an avoidant. Avoidance, first inclination when you push is to run. Just let the road go. That's really how it is. If you're pushing on the door, they let the door go and run the opposite direction. Like you want to play the game, you're going to play the game by yourself. So, but I think at this time, I did not know I was dealing with an avoidant. I think my brain at the time was really thinking I was in love and he was who he said he was because he was consistent to an extent. Definitely consistent with being emotionally unavailable. Definitely consistent with his communication to an extent. But even those things can be red flags. And that's why I'm sharing this story. Anyway, getting back to the story. He doesn't make it on the trip. I do the trip alone. And I promised myself that I would never do another birthday trip by myself. And I remember being in that damn hotel room by myself thinking, damn, Nikki, you said this is something you would never do again. And look at you. Look at where you are. And I think that was my biggest eye-opening experience. But I'm still here. I'm still there. I'm still trying because he's still being consistent. He's still texting me. He actually has started calling at this point. So now we're talking. And so I'm like, okay, he's still here. He's not running. He seems very, present. We were talking at least 3 times a day. So I'm like, okay, this seems healthy. Around Christmas comes, and we were actually supposed to meet on that Friday, the Friday before Christmas break, which was the 19th or 20th or something like that. We're supposed to meet that Friday. Well, lo and behold, your girl gets sick with the flu. Of all days, I get sick with the flu. And I tell him, the plans that we made for this weekend, we're going to have to cancel them basically because I'm sick. And he hits me up the next day and he's like, you know what? I was going to come by your house today and drop off some soup, but my parents want me to go up to Yosemite and do some things. And I was like, wait, you don't have to come by here and drop off any soup. Just forget about all that. Just go with your parents or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's a nice gesture. He's like, well, I still promised you that I was going to see you after you get back from your trip. So I wanted to keep my promise. And I was like, oh, that's very nice. But I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Christmas is coming up. Hopefully, I was told I should be better by Christmas in 5 days. Let's do the Christmas thing. Christmas comes. And he's the one that tells me, I really want to be with you on Christmas Day, if you don't mind. I hope you reserve that date for me. And I'm thinking, sweet, this man wants me to reserve Christmas Day for him. Now, I have 2 girls. I don't know how this is going to work, but we can open gifts early, and then the rest of the day I can just, put aside for him. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. Christmas Day comes. Do you know this man tells me, he does tell me, he's still talking to me at this point, but he tells me his aunt is showing up out of town. I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, she said she was going to be here at in the morning. It's noon now, and we still haven't seen her. And I was like, oh, interesting. So your aunt just pops up out of town out of nowhere on Christmas Day because she wanted to surprise you guys, and you have to be there, I guess. So okay. Now, mind you, he did text me earlier today and ask if I was going to be with family, and I told him no. So anyway, later on, it's 5 o'clock. He texted me. He goes, you won't believe it, but she's still not here. I was like, okay. 8:40 rolls around, and I become anxious attachment at this point because now you're playing in my face. You just told me that to put my whole day aside and to make sure that you get my Christmas, and I don't even hear any plans of when he's coming, if he's coming, what's going on with aunt. I don't hear any of that. So I text him and I say, I'm too upset to talk over the phone because I probably really should have called him. But I text him and I say, I guess I'm not going to see you today. And I'm very disappointed in how this played out. There was no plan presented. I still don't know if there's a plan, if I'm going to see you today. And then he texts back, I'm so sorry. My mom and my aunt got into it, and now I'm taking my aunt home, and it was just a big old mess, y'all. So the way I deal with conflict as an avoidant, I am conflict averse. Well, and I will say as an avoidant because I consider myself a former avoidant, but I do still have some avoidant tendencies. And one of those is that I shut down completely. And that one I do still have. I don't want conflict. If I don't know what to say, I will just completely shut down and get silent. I know for some people it's passive aggressive, but for me, my body doesn't know any other way. It really is a fight, flight, or freeze response, and I freeze. So in that moment, I really just didn't know what to say. My thought was, tell me what the plan is. I understand that you and your mom and your aunt are having an issue with each other, but tell me what the plan is. But that's not what I said. Instead, I said nothing. I just decided to end the conversation at that point. I did not respond back. And I was hoping at this point, and this is usually what we do hope when that happens, is that that person would be bigger than me in that moment and reach out to me either via phone or even the text message and say, are you okay? I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do? Tell me what the plan is. He did none of those things. And so That was the last time I talked to him. Or that last time he talked to me. I'll put it that way. Because at that point, he went ghost. After that, he went ghost. So, ghosted again. Ghosted again. We are here again. And basically at the same point of contact again. And it usually happens right at that 3-month mark, that 4-month mark in this case. And there's only 4 months because of that long extended vacation between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Otherwise, had that not even been there, we probably would have been ended in Thanksgiving. But I say all that to say that a lot of times that's when you expect more out of your relationship. Any normal person, you're expecting more out of your relationship from an avoidant. You're wanting it to go to that next level, and they are unable to give you that emotional availability. And mainly in this case, I feel like he wasn't able to give it to me 2 months prior, and was coming up with all these excuses as to why, he couldn't meet up, why he couldn't take me out. Now, maybe he was married, and I didn't know. There's still a lot about this man I don't know. It's a lot about this man I probably still don't believe. And the more I dig into the culture, the more I'm starting to see things that I wish I could unsee. But if we were going to take this at face value, that this man told me everything and I'm going to just believe everything that he says, if we take it for a face value, then he is an avoidant. Obviously hiding something. Avoidants usually are hiding something anyway. So whether it's the whole family or his emotions or his insecurities, I will never know. I will never know. However, I do know that it took me a while because I did have a big cry to get over that heartbreak of being love bombed, really. I did have a good cry. But I also realized that I cannot take his insecurities personally. Mainly because I've been there myself. I've been the person who's ghosted somebody myself. I consider myself a former avoidant. I think I have grown a lot. However, from the standpoint of being someone who was really looking and wanting love from somebody, at the same time, when you actually get it, or when you actually feel like you're close to it, it can be very scary. Because being with someone who sees you, it means that they have to see all of you eventually. So in the beginning, we're very open and try to be perfect. Kind of like, I want to say his name so bad, but I'm not going to say his name. I'm going to call him I call him CJ because that's actually his initials. Kind of like CJ did. It was like you love bomb. You give a lot. You give more than you've gotten ever. Because you think that that's a way to kind of like get people attached to you. But the problem with that is that it's superficial. And then you're like, oh, wait, hold on. And you don't know it consciously. You're thinking, it's superficial. Consciously, you're not thinking about any of this. You're thinking, I really try to get this person to like me and I have to be perfect. But consciously, at the end of the day, for people who are aware of why, you feel this need to be perfect. And then also you know that you're not. And you're afraid that the person's going to figure out, whoa, this person's not perfect. Ooh, this person has like a lot going on. And you feel because you judge yourself for that stuff that the other person is going to judge you for it as well. And so you back off, you leave, you retreat. You're like, you know what? I'm going to leave this person before they leave me. When the one thing in the world that you want the most is really to be loved. Being an avoidant is one of the hardest things. It's one of the hardest things that you can be because you're constantly pushing away the one thing that you want the most. Because you're afraid you're going to lose it. But you're going to lose it anyway because you keep pushing it away. I don't know why I just went off on this. However, this is me being vulnerable. There is an emotional impact to ghosting and being ghosted. And maybe that's why I'm like, having my moment right now because I know and understand both of them. I hate being an empath too because I understand both sides. I understand like why someone leaves, why someone detaches because I've been there myself. And I feel like I'm finally away from that. I don't want any more avoidance, but I understand them because I used to be one myself. But I don't want to do this anymore I don't want to be with emotionally unavailable people, right? So I feel like this experience has helped me to realize like some of the red flags of emotionally unavailable people, especially having been one myself. I can say these are some of the things, of course, that you should look out for. Now, a lot of people say inconsistent communication. However, one thing I found, and especially with the guy I was just talking to with CJ, is you can actually get people who are emotionally available and give you consistent communication. They can be vulnerable with you. They can talk to you consistently. They can talk to you on an everyday basis. They can be consistent. So I think that one is actually a fallacy. However, I think if by inconsistent, they mean that after the 3 to 4 month mark, when you start really getting to see them, even sooner, but usually around that time, that's when they can kind of drop off. And then they may come back later, if and only if they feel safe. Like if you don't cut it off, like you better not ever text me again, I've blocked you or whatever, that's when they can come back. All right. Another thing emotionally unavailable people will do is they will future fake with you. Just like the guy had told me, like, oh, I can see us one day, being old together and calling the water people together. He also had mentioned us having kids together. So, and the wedding, it's just like the vague future plans of what we're going to do in the future and dropping those little hints, right? Because they do genuinely want that stuff. The closer they get to it, they are afraid. And the number one thing that I've noticed is, for me anyway, for people that I've talked to in the past, is they're very afraid to get deep. The deep emotional connections are really hard for them. Just like CJ said to me, he was like, I don't care about your past. Like, that doesn't worry me. I don't judge you on your past. You shouldn't judge me on mine. They don't want to go into their past because that means unlocking some stuff. That means unlocking some trauma that they're not ready for. And I know because I used to be like that too. If you want to talk to me about some things that happened in my past, that's unlocking trauma that I haven't even dealt with yet. So I don't want to talk to you about that. If I talk to you about that, that means opening up to you, and that means scary. Okay? So even if I do that and you get me to open up, I'm going to retreat back fast. Okay? I'm retreating fast as an avoidant, as an emotionally unavailable person. That's what I'm doing. So it's easy to try to draw people in by love bombing. You're trying to create this attachment early, but it's hard to sustain a connection without vulnerability. And that's what avoidants are afraid of. So I think one of the biggest differences I learned was the differences between healthy attachment versus trauma bonding. And let's just discuss the difference between genuine emotional connection and an unhealthy attachment. So like I said, it's important to know people before getting too emotionally invested. I say 3 months is the goal. 3 months is key. And you have to be careful of trauma bonding, which is what I do a lot. I feel like I realize I'm dealing with avoidant, and because I've been through a lot of those things, I'm very patient with them. But now I think this last relationship has taught me just to be able to say, okay, he's not emotionally available. I can't deal with this. I need to move on. I can't trauma bond. I can't do that old trauma bonding thing. I like to work with people and help them and try to see them through things, but I can tell now when someone's ready for me or not. And so I learned from old boy, number one, no more texting. We're talking on the phone. I'm asking questions. And if you're afraid to answer them, that's going to be a red flag for me. Those two. Okay. So anyway, let's go over some tips for dealing with ghosting. Number one is to not take it personally. The ghosting is more about them than it is about you. Usually ghosters are conflict averse, which means that they're afraid of having conflict. They're afraid of not being perfect. And so instead of just having a mature conversation with you, they just decide to do like the silent treatment, to leave you, not tell you why, all of that, See a lot of people say, oh, block and delete that person. Just ghost. Excuse me. And that seems to be like the new age thing with people because they're not mature enough to have the conversation of why this isn't working. And for some people, they don't care to even give it to you. Once their time is done with you, there's like, oh, on to the next person. Oh, I got something better over here, which happens a lot to emotionally available people anyway, because they're 1 foot out the door anyway. They're already talking to other people. So don't take it personal. It's not about you more so than it is about them. Okay? Another thing is you're going to avoid chasing closure. And I know this is a big thing for people. A lot of people want to seek closure from the ghoster, right? And I know I'm the same way. My brother was ghosted by some girl he was talking to for 2 years. He was really into it. It hurt him bad. He used to try to pop up, trying to get her to have a conversation. She was like, you know what? I don't want this conversation right now. They don't want to have the conversation. That's why they ghost in the first place, is because they're afraid of the conversation. If you approach them, they're just going to go into freeze mode. They don't have anything to say. They are not going to know what to say to you, okay? Their reason is to run. That's closure enough, because if you ask yourself, do you want to be with somebody who cares so little of your feelings that they're willing to just shut the door on you? That's your closure. That's your answer. No, I don't want to be with someone like that. I don't want to be with someone who thinks so little of me that they can just leave. Even when you reach out to them via text message and say, can we talk? And they just ignore you, or they blocked you. They're protecting themselves, which means you have to do the same thing. And your outpouring of love, the reason why you want to talk so bad is because you still have all this love you have to give. And unfortunately, what you're going to have to do is take that same love and redirect it. Redirect it to a project, redirect it to yourself, but you're going to have to sit in it. I always say cry it out, because if you take those emotions in, it's kind of like, why did this person do this to me? This is unfair, because it is. They pretended to love me. Maybe, maybe not. They probably really thought they wanted love and then they got scared. It's not your fault. Cry it out, but then also know that you can't sit in it too long. You have to take this energy that you have, because you're going to have a bunch of it. You're going to have a bunch of unfulfilled love that you wanted, unfulfilled future promises that you thought you were going to have. Take all of that, put it back in you. It's a lot. And all of that you're going to need for you. Okay? You're going to need that for you. And you're going to have to start focusing on you and your self-care. You have to start rebuilding your confidence. And the next time you're taking this and you're going to set boundaries. You're going to set boundaries. And this is what I did. I told you guys, after this last relationship with this dude, I'm not texting only. I'm not taking any text only. If you want to talk to me, you're going to pick up that phone, or we're going to have a phone conversation. Point blank, period. That's how I feel about it. No more texting. I'm not dealing with love bombing. You're not coming at me telling me all this future faking, what we're going to do in the future and all this. Okay. What unresolved trauma do you have going on that you're trying to attach to me so quickly? Calm down, buddy. Pump your brakes. I understand you want to go on another date tomorrow, but let's calm down. Okay? That's what we're doing. You're setting your boundaries. You're not letting people just play you all over the place, because that's how they feel it, and you're just going with the okie doke. No. We're setting our boundaries. Okay? And we're not over-investing too quickly. We're going to do this for 3 months. I'm not telling you we're just doing this for 3 months, okay? I'm not putting that out there to them. I'm using 3 months to see. And if they fall off in the 3 months, that's on them. I ain't tell them. That was on them. They weren't interested. They weren't that interested, right? But I'll give you 3 months. And I'm not getting over-invested too quickly. I know sometimes that's hard when you really like somebody. I'm a dreamist. I like to dream about things. And I'm also a romantic. I like to be romantic. But romanticism is for fairy tales. Romanticism is for the movies. I'm a writer. So, yeah, I like to write up great stories. But just remember that it's a story. Just remember you're writing a story for yourself, and you're going to hope that it turns out okay. But if it doesn't, we haven't overinvested. Okay? And lastly, make sure that whatever you do, you look at dating as a way to gather information, right? Even if it doesn't work out, even if the date doesn't work out, what did you learn? What did you learn from this? I think that's the most important thing about going to the next thing is taking this time to realize what you learned. As hurtful as that last experience was, because I really enjoyed my time with CJ. Like, I did. We had some great dates. I guess I got swept up in the love bombing. You know, it was nice to be treated like a lady for a long period of time, you know, for 3 months or whatever, because that last month sucked. But it was nice. It was nice having that interaction with someone. What I learned is I do want that. Like, I do want that. I was all in. Like, he said, I miss me. I said, I miss you too. It was easier because he was so, quote unquote, vulnerable, at least in that way. And I realized that's what I do want. But I also want someone who's emotionally available. I also want someone who's willing to pick up the phone and talk to me. I also want someone who has conflict resolution skills. So that's what I learned. So I can take that away and use it for my next. Right? That all being said, I've been using it since then. The last time I talked to CJ was on Christmas Day. Never talked to him again. And that's been 2 weeks now. And since then, I've decided to go back to dating. Most people would probably be like, it's too early, it's too soon. For me, it's not, because he was the one that broke it up with me. And I understand that he was the one that has the issue, not me. My issue, of course, was not being able to see the signs. But now that I have done my research, I've set some time out to figure out what exactly I did wrong. Now I'm going to take that. I'll move it forward. Because I'm not going to let this man keep me from my husband. He wasn't the one. But he did show me what I do want in my future husband, or the man that I'm with, who will not be an avoidant. Let me tell you that. He will not be an avoidant. Everything he is an avoidant, he's going to be a recovering one like me, okay? So anyway, on our next podcast, we're going to talk about some of my dating adventures that I've had so far since CJ. It has been a roller coaster ride for sure. I still have not found my man, but I do want to show you some of the dating that I have gone through since then. And then we can just break those down and then learn about attachment styles and stuff through that. So, first off, let me just say, I appreciate you joining me on this Ghosted Again episode. But make sure you join me next week. We will be talking about toxic dating and navigating new relationships. So, I want you to stay tuned with that. And in the meantime, make sure that you take care of yourself. And make sure that if you were also ghosted by someone, that you don't take it personally. A lot of times, again, it's not about you. It's completely about them. We don't want to believe that. We want to think that there was something we could have done, something we could have said. We start replaying things. There was nothing you could have done. Take it from me, a passive avoidant. There was nothing that you could have done. And it's all personal. We are running away from our own insecurities. And the best thing you can do for those people is to allow them to run. Okay? Don't chase after them. Just allow them to run. I know it hurts, but all of that energy, pour that back into yourself. All right? I'm gonna let you go, because you know me. I'll talk here. I'll talk till 12 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time it is right now, but we can talk forever. Anyway, thank you for joining me in my messy room. I'm trying to be vulnerable as F, and I appreciate you. Until next time, I'm Nikki D.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hello Me, It's Me with Nikki D. Lovely. Just remember, you can't change who you were yesterday, but you can always learn and grow to become a better version of yourself today. So make sure you do the mental work today for the future you tomorrow, and I will see you next week. And in the meantime, make sure that you check me out on my Instagram at Nikki D. Lovely or _broke_mama. You can also find me at nikkidlovely.com and check out my book, No F Boys Allowed. I also have a poetry book coming out pretty soon, so just a little shameless plug. But either way, I will see you guys next time, and thanks again.